petition to honor the estimated 600 farmers who commit suicide each year in France. This is what Jacques Chefredo, a farmer himself, wants to do. He says while this high number may startle some, it's because suicide is little talked about in the farming world.
I have many colleagues in farming who've left this world, and then I realized that they've never had a day to honor them. And this always made me feel sad. I felt a certain kind of injustice that there's never been a recognition for these people who've killed themselves while working to feed us, all of us.
Chefredo will set 600 white crosses in front of this church in Brittany on the 11th of October. He hopes to sound a warning bell that suicide among France's farmers is higher than in any other profession. And it's not just happening in France.
It's a phenomenon that's the same in other European countries. We can talk about Germany, where the numbers are a minimum of 500, then 400 in Belgium, and in Italy there are lots of suicides as well. I haven't researched other European countries, but I've been told there are a lot in Romania as well. So it's not just a French problem, it's a European problem.
But the question now is, how did Europe's farmers get to this point? This summer they poured into the streets, marching all the way to Brussels to protest against falling milk and meat prices. The farmers argued an end to milk quotas coupled with a shrinking global demand and a Russian embargo on farm products was strangling them. In September, the European Commission pledged €500 million to help the struggling farmers. But they maintain regulation and not subsidies are the answer. Audrey Lebivic runs a dairy farm of 75 cows with her parents in Brittany. Today, she says she's producing at a loss. Amid falling milk prices, she's now paid €300 per 1,000 litres, but her production costs are €345. And now, because of the end of EU quotas, she has to produce even more to stay competitive.
They're targeting a quota of 800,000 litres per person. Here are only 3 to reach that quota. We're not going to continue working like that for nothing. Young people don't want to come and work here anymore with these types of conditions. Never a free weekend, no holidays, working a minimum of 70 hours per week, and on top of that, no salary. We're the only ones crazy enough to work under these conditions. And in other European countries, they're suffering just like us. We were in Brussels demonstrating side by side with the Germans, who were also saying they were dying like us. They're also calling for regulating the market. But the politicians don't listen.
Audrey's father and his wife started this farm before Europe imposed milk quotas to regulate the market in 1984. But last April, EU members agreed to stop the quotas. The reason? More milk was needed for a growing global demand, a demand which in the end has shrunk. Thierry worries for his daughter's future.
We only have 5 more years until we retire. But for her, later, either we'll sell everything or she finds an associate. But what if it's not worth it? What if it's not worth investing in anymore? Not worth finding someone to buy our shares? There's always more investment needed, always something to repair. So today we're wondering if in 5 years it might not just be better to sell everything.
But dairy farmers are not the only ones worried about their future. This pig farmer in Brittany says the pork industry has been hit hard by the Russian embargo, but norms that differ among EU members are also taking their toll. Yves Hervé Mangin needs to sell between 200 and 500 pigs every week. If not, his costs rise.
If the pigs aren't sold, the risk is I won't have any room for the piglets after them. So I always need to have space available. In general, the buildings are full all the time, so I have very little room to maneuver if the animals aren't sold.
Yves Hervé says 10 years ago, France produced more pork meat than Germany or Spain, for example. But today, because of different EU norms among countries, Germany and Spain both produce about 20 million tons more a year. And Yves Hervé says today about 20% of debt-ridden French pig farms are on the brink of collapsing.
Today, it's the young generation, like me, which is being sacrificed. We can't seem to break even. We can only reduce our production volume. We don't have any help. We only get promises from the government. And there's nothing on a European level. So we are sacrificing a whole generation of farmers, but the effect of this will only be felt in 10, in 20 years.
There's little doubt that Europe's farming landscape has changed dramatically over the past 50 years. In 1960, in France alone, some 4 million people worked the farming industry. Today, that number has been cut to less than a quarter. Another Brittany dairy farmer, Christian Asquette, has managed to weather the agricultural storm partly by diversifying. But he worries that Europe's path towards a more liberal, self-regulating market could mean the financial death of more than a third of France's smaller farms.
You have to protest for a project. You can't just demonstrate against something. Demonstrating against is already something. But you especially have to demonstrate for a project. And the only structure at a European level is the European Milk Board. It's a European project for all the European milk producers, which has united producers from all over Europe. What we would like to see is a Europe of cooperation. But the industries, the financial markets, want to impose a Europe of competition. But these people, these directors, they don't suffer from the consequences of this competition. They make the farmers suffer that pressure.
A pressure that leaves smaller farms struggling to survive. And while Christian says he still loves his work, and moments such as seeing the birth of a calf, he understands that for some, the pressure has just become too much.
It's a reality that kills, and I think that the numbers, in France they talk about a farmer who commits suicide every day. Well, I think the numbers are higher for reasons I won't go into. Unfortunately, there's a lot of economic suffering, a lot of social suffering, and for some, they can't take it anymore.
I have colleagues that have committed suicide, and I blame it on Europe, on the cooperatives. So we're dying today. Even if we come up with a solution, they reject it. Because for them, the only solution is to regroup the farms. It's unfair. It took my parents and me 10 years to work out our system so it would function properly. When I joined the farm, there were a lot of sanitary problems. It cost us a lot of money. Today, everything is up to norm. And all that just to sell it all? No, I'm sorry. I don't agree. I'll continue to claim my rights.
The door's stuck. We're going to have to invest.
Voilà, allez hop, on s'en va.